Hello again, and welcome again. This is session number 149 of Kevin Reed's A Course in Miracles, which is what we do here. All right, session 149. We're still in chapter 18, entitled The Passing of the Dream. And this is section 8, Roman numeral 8, entitled The Little Garden, on page 390 in the text. The Little Garden. Just at this point, I just want to do something personal for me. The first teacher I ever encountered of A Course in Miracles was Emily Andrews on Long Island. Emily was just a wonderfully generous person. And she loved reading the Course. She connected with it, 40 years ago or so. And she began holding classes, right, and helping people to understand what was being said. All right, now, mind you, the Course never mentions anything about holding classes or having churches or anything like that. Jesus tells us it's a self-study course, So, but sometimes, we need a leg up, as they say in the horse trading business, horse riding business, I should say. You need a little help to get through some of the passages and understand the concepts. And that's what Emily did for me. All right, Emily passed away maybe 11, 12 years ago, but this was the first section that she ever read. Long story short, this is the first section that she ever read, and she was so taken by it that she decided to follow up and make a friendship with Jesus. Okay, that being said, this is section number 8, The Little Garden. It is only the awareness of the body that makes love seem limited, for the body is a limit on love. The belief in limited love was its origin, and it was made to limit the unlimited. Think not that this is merely allegorical, for it was made to limit you. Can you, who see yourself within a body, know yourself as an idea? Everything you recognize, you identify with externals, something outside yourself. You cannot even think of God without a body, or in some form you think you recognize. He's telling us how really immersed we are in this thought of form, the body being the major form, right? And he continues on in this chapter about the body, set in several places, and I guess it was a different session, session 147. He said, the body is outside of you, but it seems to surround you, shutting you off from others and keeping you apart from them and them from you. It is not there, okay? And he will keep repeating this idea in so many different ways. And once again, it's not to jump to the head of the class there and say, oh, well, my body, I'm not really a body. All right, which is true, but unless that's your experience, keep doing the work. And the work is to notice when you are taking things seriously. Notice what it is that you do believe. All right? Oh, yes, I do believe this is happening with my body. I do believe this is happening with that person's body. Right? Oh, I do believe that that person's form, that person's voice or movements is threatening my body or threatening my psyche, right? Who I think I am. Right? All these things, just notice it. That's the work. Notice it and ask Jesus to help you see correctly. Help me see the situation correctly. I mean, as far as the body goes, there's so many times in our lives, for many of us anyway, that we just don't like our bodies, right? And then you run into people who don't like your body either. And we take that very seriously. That's a good time to get a second opinion, so to speak, and ask Jesus, could you help me to see myself correctly? All right? Now, which is not the true self, but my body. Help me to see my body correctly. It's a great beginning. All right? It's a great beginning. Stop hating your body. Or stop thinking your body is so cool, you know, that you want to go put on a little bathing suit and go march in the Mermaid Parade in Coney Island. Which they have called off this year. But he says the belief, the body is made to limit love. Right? And he says, therefore, it's a limit on you. And he puts the you in italics. Right? And the you he's speaking to is that decision-making part of the mind. Right? That part of our mind that has to decide between the separation and the oneness. Right? Because if we choose the separation, we wind up in a body, and that body limits who you really are. Right? It puts a fence around it. For the body is a limit on love. The belief in limited love was its origin. Right? I could be separated from love. That's the origin. I believed I could do that. And boom, here I am. I wind up in this. All right? I wind up in a body. All right? It was made to limit the unlimited. Your true self is unlimited. All right? The body was made to limit that and to prove, oh, you're not unlimited. You're not part of the oneness. All right? Look, this is who you are. All right? Can you who see yourself within a body know yourself as an idea? All right? You are an idea in the mind of God. He says, can you see yourself as that? And I hearken back to earlier sessions when I was saying that's one of the scary thoughts. It's one of the reasons why we run away from love. Because we're so familiar with this, right? This identity, this solid form, and all the other solid forms around us, that the idea of being an idea, right, being abstract, is frightening. It's like there's nothing to hold on to. There's nowhere to, no terra firma, as they say, right? There's nothing to put your feet on, all right? But Jesus helps us along. That's what he's here for, right? He says, that's why you came, to undo all this, all right? And not very abruptly, right? We undo it little by little. So it becomes less and less fearful to think of yourself as an idea. Okay? Everything you recognize, you identify with externals. Something outside yourself, something outside itself. He He says, you cannot even think of God without a body, or in some form you think you recognize. Right? Now, he's not criticizing us, right? Not at all criticizing us. Just think about it. And notice when that happens. You know, you think about God, and all of a sudden, most likely there's some kind of a form comes into your mind. He says, don't worry about it. We're going to work on it. We're working on it. Right? It doesn't make you bad. Right? This is just a piece of information. Right? A piece of information that we can work with. Right? We can undo it, right? With the help of Jesus or Holy Spirit and the right mind, joining with them in the holy instant. Okay, paragraph 2. The body cannot know. And while you limit your awareness to its tiny senses, you will not see the grandeur that surrounds you. God cannot come into a body, nor can you join him there. Limits on love will always seem to shut him out and keep you apart from him. Right? He's going to start using that word seem. Seem. The body is a tiny fence around a little part of a glorious and complete idea. It draws a circle, infinitely small, around a very little segment of heaven, splintered from the whole, proclaiming that within it is your kingdom, where God cannot enter. All right, so he says the body can't know anything. All right, and while you limit your awareness to its tiny senses, you will not see the grandeur that surrounds you. So while we're so concerned with this is the end-all and be-all. It says you're not going to become aware of the grandeur that surrounds you, the grandeur in which you exist, that is you and it's part of you. Right? While you're concerned with the form. Right? He says God cannot come into a body. Right? Limits on love will always seem to shut him out. Nothing can shut God out, but it seems that way. Right? The body is a tiny fence around a little part of a glorious and complete idea. It draws a circle, infinitely small, around a very little segment of heaven. Splintered from the whole, proclaiming that within it is your kingdom, where God can enter not. That's what the body does. That's the ego thought system in form. Right? God cannot enter here because the ego tells you, God, you got to be afraid of God. Right? God's going to get you because you screwed up the whole oneness thing. Okay, paragraph 3. It says, within this kingdom, the ego rules, and cruelly. And to defend this little speck of dust, it bids you fight against the universe. This fragment of your mind is such a tiny part of it that, could you but appreciate the whole, you would see instantly that it is like the smallest sunbeam to the sun, or like the faintest ripple on the surface of the ocean. In its amazing arrogance, this tiny sunbeam has decided it is the sun. This almost imperceptible ripple hails itself as the ocean. Think how alone and frightened is this little thought, this infinitesimal illusion, holding itself apart against the universe. The sun becomes the sunbeam's enemy that would devour it, and the ocean terrifies that little ripple and wants to swallow it, right? Just very poetically, of course, describing our thought processes and the ego. He says this little ripple, all right? It says this little speck of dust, the ego tells you to fight against the universe. All right? It's like, he says, it's like the smallest sunbeam to the sun. Right? Or a little ripple on the ocean. And yet the sunbeam has the arrogance to think it is the sun. All right? So this tiny fragment, this little piece of dust, thinks it is God Almighty. It is the center of all. It is the ruler of the kingdom. And yet, he says, how terrified that little sunbeam must be. Because the sun becomes its enemy, it's going to devour it. And the ocean threatens that little ripple. It's just going to swallow it up. And that's our existence in a poetic snapshot. Right. We proclaim our individuality and our victory over the oneness, and yet we're afraid of the oneness. We're afraid of the progenitor of the oneness. It's going to come and get us. This is so that tiny little sunbeam lives in terror. Right? The sun becomes the sunbeam's enemy. And he says, think how alone and frightened is this little thought. Right? And that's us. Right? Some people can't be quiet. Right? And they don't know why. Right? Or they can't really stay still for too long. They don't know why. Right? It's that free-floating fear, that terror, right? That something is coming to get it, all right? And this is our existence. And this is what he means, where within this kingdom, the ego rules, the thought of separation rules, but it's a cruel ruler, all right? And it tells us to fight against the universe, and to fear love, right? Because love would just totally dissolve the ego thought system. Paragraph 4, yet neither sun nor ocean is even aware of all this strange and meaningless activity. They merely continue unaware that they are feared and hated by a tiny segment of themselves. Even that segment is not lost to them, for it could not survive apart from them. And what it thinks it is in no way changes its total dependency on them for its being. Its whole existence still remains in them. Without the sunbeam would be gone. The ripple without the ocean is inconceivable. Okay? So he says, God, he's telling us very poetically, God's not even aware of all this crazy activity we're involved in. All right? God merely continues. All right? Neither the sun nor the ocean are aware of this strange and meaningless activity. They merely continue. All right? Unaware that they are feared and hated by a tiny segment of themselves. All right? So the Creator just continues, right? Continues extending love, and unaware that part of a segment of its creation is afraid of it. Okay. It just continues. And he says, but even that segment is not lost to the Creator. For it could not survive apart from them, all right? Because you are part of the oneness. The oneness does not happen without you. Okay. And the whole of existence still remains within you, no matter what you think. No matter what it thinks, in no way changes its total dependence on them for its being. Right? So no matter what you think, we're still dependent on the mind of God. All right. Paragraph 5. Such is the strange position in which those in a world inhabited by bodies seem to be. Each body seems to house a separate mind, a disconnected thought, living alone and in no way joined to the thought by which it was created. Each tiny fragment seems to be self-contained, needing another for some things, but by no means totally dependent on its one creator for everything, needing the whole to give it any meaning. For by itself, it does mean nothing. Nor has it any life apart and by itself. Okay? So to go on that picture of the fragments, he says, this is the strange position in which those in a world inhabited by bodies seem to be. Right? And he says, just make this observation. Right? Each body seems to house a separate mind. I mean, you have to admit it. Even when we start talking about the one mind, we still operate as if there are separate minds. And once again, you don't have to do anything. Just observe and be willing to be corrected. That's all. You don't need to do anything else. So each body seems to house a separate mind, a disconnected thought, living alone and in no way joined to the thought by which it was created. All right? So we are not even aware that we're joined to the capital T thought that created us. Right? Each tiny fragment seems to be self-contained. I mean, these are pretty clear statements. And each fragment seems to need something from someone else, needing another for some things, but by no means totally dependent on its one creator for everything. So we're not even aware of the fact that we're totally dependent on the Creator for our existence. Right? But we run around this dream and I need this, I get it from that person. I need this, I get it over here. Right? But by no means totally dependent on its one Creator. Needing the whole to give it any meaning. All right? We need the oneness to give us our meaning. All right? Everything else is meaningless. All right? We are what we are because we're in the wholeness. Okay? Nor has it any life apart and by itself. All right? That's another way, Jesus at one point, very early on, says there is no life outside of heaven. All right? So the thought of separation is always referred to as death or the crucifixion of God's Son. And, all right? He always says it's lifeless. All right? But it seems as though we have life. And once again, it's just to observe these things and bring them to the holy instant. And let the light shine on them. So paragraph 6. Like to the sun and the ocean, your self continues, your higher self, the capital S self continues, unmindful that this tiny part regards itself as you. It is not missing. It could not exist if it were separate, nor would the whole be whole without it. It is not a separate kingdom, ruled by an idea of separation from the rest, nor does a fence surround it, preventing it from joining with the rest and keeping it apart from its creator. This little aspect is no different from the whole, being continuous with it and at one with it. It leads no separate life, because its life is the oneness in which its being was created. Excuse me. So in a roundabout way, Jesus is telling us we're living in an illusion, something that is really impossible. Right? It says this little aspect is no different than the whole. And I don't mean my body, I'm talking about my mind. Right? He says, your mind is part of the whole. It's no different from it. Right? He says your higher self continues, just like the sun and the ocean in the metaphor. Your true self continues, and it's unmindful that the tiny part regards itself as you. So this little fragment of the mind that thinks it's separated from God regards itself as Kevin. He says, your true self just continues. Right? It's really not bothered by the machinations of my little fragmented mind here. Right? So in other words, no matter what we think, we're still a part of the oneness. So he says in paragraph 7, do not accept this little fenced-off aspect as yourself. The sun and the ocean are as nothing beside what you are. The sunbeam sparkles only in the sunlight, and the ripple dances as it rests upon the ocean. Yet in neither sun nor ocean is the power that rests in you. Would you remain within your tiny kingdom, a sorry king, a bitter ruler of all that he surveys, who looks on nothing, yet who would still die to defend it? This little self is not your kingdom. Arched high above it and surrounding it with love is the glorious whole, which offers all its happiness and deep content to every part. The little aspect that you think you set apart is no exception. Okay. Arched high above it and surrounding it with love is the glorious whole, is the oneness, right? Which offers all its happiness and deep content to every part. So the oneness offers everything to every part. Right. Paragraph 8, love knows no bodies and reaches to everything created like itself. Its total lack of limit is its meaning. It is completely impartial in its giving, encompassing only to preserve and keep complete what it would give. In your tiny kingdom, you have so little. Should it not then be there that you would call on love to enter? Look at the desert, dry and unproductive, scorched and joyless, that makes up your little kingdom. and realize the life and joy that love would bring to it from where it comes and where it would return with you. All right? So this desert that he's describing is that the ego mind. All right? It's dry and it's unproductive. All right? It's scorched and it's joyless. He says that's the ego mind. He says that's what makes up your little kingdom. You're the ruler over that. So you think. All right? And realize the life and joy that love would bring to it from where it comes. All right? And where it would return with you. Okay. Just going to continue this. Paragraph 9. The thought of God surrounds your little kingdom, waiting at the barrier you built to come inside and shine upon the barren ground. See how life springs up everywhere. The desert becomes a garden, green and deep and quiet, offering rest to those who lost their way and wander in the dust. Give them a place of refuge, prepared by love for them where once a desert was. And everyone you welcome will bring love with him from heaven for you. They enter one by one into this holy place, but they will not depart as they had come, alone. They love what they brought with them. The love they brought with them will stay with them, as it will stay with you. And under its beneficence, your little garden will expand and reach out to everyone who thirsts for living water, but has grown too weary to go on alone. All right, this is very, very poetically describing our process as we are willing to go to the right mind, right? Willing to go to that place where we encounter Jesus and the Holy Spirit and the memory of who we are. All right? We continue to go there. That dry, scorched part of our mind, it becomes a beautiful garden. All right? And it expands. And people who are thirsty, right? People who are alone, right? People who are suffering, they will come into the garden. Right? Their minds will join with yours. Right? And they will get the benefit of the nourishment, the tranquility, and the beauty of your mind, which is connected to all mind. All right? Which is connected to the oneness. And as we practice that, the experience of it grows, it expands. Right? We become aware of it and we want it more and more until it's the absolute only thing we want, is to be aware of the oneness. But along the way, you see how Jesus describes the journey as becoming lighter and benefiting others. Right? All right. And under its beneficence, your little garden will expand and reach out to everyone who thirsts for living water, but has grown too weary to go on alone. Right. Then he says, go out and find them, for they bring yourself with them, and lead them gently to your quiet garden and receive their blessing there. So will it grow and stretch across the desert, leaving no lonely little kingdoms locked away from love. And leaving you outside, and leaving you inside. And you will recognize yourself and see your little garden gently transformed
into the kingdom of heaven, with all the love of its creator shining upon it. So the other, all right, brings with them the opportunity for us to remember who we are when we are willing to see the spark of God in them. We're willing to see the innocence. We're willing to have our perceptions corrected. Okay? It says then you become aware of the expanding and expansive nature of your mind. And the love they brought with them will stay with them. Right? They bring yourself with a capital S. Right? Because there's no separation. Right? If I'm willing to see the spark of God in you, I will remember it in me. Right? And I will be comforted. Right? And that's their blessing. I will receive their blessing. Right? And you will recognize yourself and see your little garden gently transformed into the kingdom of heaven. So my mind, which was that scorched desert, as where in one place Jesus says where starved and thirsty creatures come to die, right now it's transformed into a garden, right? And it's very inviting for the others, the perceived others, to come in and be comforted. All right? And in the meantime, they bring the knowledge of myself, my higher self, with them. All right? You see implied in that there's no separation. There's only a seeming separation. All right? Paragraph 11. The holy instant is your invitation to love, to enter into your bleak and joyless kingdom, and to transform it into a garden of peace and welcome. Love's answer is inevitable. It will come because you came without the body and interposed no barriers to interfere with its glad coming. In the holy instant, you ask of love only what it offers everyone, neither less nor more. Asking for everyone, you will receive it. Asking for everything, you will receive it. And your shining self will lift the tiny aspect that you tried to hide from heaven straight to heaven. No part of love calls on the whole in vain. No son of God remains outside his fatherhood. All right. So the holy instant, when I am willing to see correctly, when I pull back from the ego thought system, I say, no, wait, I don't want that. And there's no aspect of time involved. I just go to that part of the mind. And I'm willing to see correctly. I'm willing to see with the eyes of peace, the eyes of truth. All right? That's when things are transformed. All right? They're transformed into a garden of peace and welcome. All right? And that's our willingness is our invitation to love. To let love answer, to let love enter and correct our misperceptions. Help us to sense things differently. And he says, and it will come, love's answer is inevitable, and it will come because You came without the body. All right, we just laid everything down. Just relinquish it for a second. All right? In this holy instant, you ask of love only what it offers everyone, neither less nor more. All right? There's no orders of difficulty. There's no gradations. All right? What does love look like in this situation? It's another way of looking at the situations we're in. You know, I'm willing to see what love looks like. All right? And make sure not to know what love looks like. Don't come with an agenda. Don't come with any preconceived notions. You'll be disappointed. But if we come with no preconceived notions, we're almost always, I should say, not almost, always pleasantly surprised. All right? And he says, no part of love calls on the whole in vain. When you call on Jesus, Holy Spirit, to help you, he says, that never falls on deaf ears. You never call in vain. Right? Be sure of this, paragraph 12. Love has entered your special relationship and entered fully at your weak request. You do not recognize that love has come because you have not yet let go of all the barriers you hold against your brother. So don't be discouraged. Don't be discouraged. He says, be sure that love has entered because you asked. Help me to see this correctly. At some point you asked. At some point you acknowledged, I am willing to see this correctly, to see this person, this situation. Right? I'm willing to see it through the eyes of peace. And he says, but sometimes you don't recognize that love has entered the relationship because we hold on to some resentments, right? Because you have not let go of all the barriers you hold against your brother. All right? So the practice is to look at the barriers when we become aware of them and ask for help. Help me with this barrier. Help me with this obstacle to peace. Help me with this block to the awareness of love's presence. All right? You have not let go of all the barriers you hold against your brother, and you and he will not be able to give love welcome separately. All right? This is together or not at all. All right? There's no one excluded. Everyone is included in the love, in the kingdom. Right? He says, you could no more know God alone than he knows you without your brother. All right? So this is all about the oneness, the interconnectedness of the mind. Okay? But together you could no more be unaware of love than love could know you not, or fail to recognize itself in you. All right? So together, you can't fail to become aware of love. All right? Paragraph 13. You have reached the end of an ancient journey, not realizing yet that it is over. You are still worn and tired, and the desert's dust seems to cloud your eyes and keep you sightless. Yet he whom you welcomed has come to you and would welcome you. He has waited long to give you this. Receive it now of him, for he would have you know him. Only a little wall of dust stands between you and your brother. Blow on it lightly, and with happy laughter, and it will fall away, and walk into the garden love has prepared for both of you. Okay, that little garden. Right? Only a little wall of dust still stands between you and your brother. All right? And, we can start with just the people around us, right? With the resentments that we hold. We can start asking, sincerely asking to have that perception corrected. I don't want to fight anymore. I don't want to, every time I see the guy, I got to remember, 25 years ago, he tied my shoelaces together. Whatever. He did something horrible to me. Let's put it that way. Right? After a while, you get tired of carrying that, right? Because that never changes. And we want to keep him the guilty party. All right? So it's not us. All right? But after a while, you get tired of it. It doesn't work. It never works. You always still feel guilty about something. Right? That's what made this world, was the guilt. We try to cover it up. Cover it up with the world and with the body. It doesn't work. But he says, yet, just remember. He says, he whom you welcomed has come to you. This ancient journey is over. Right? We're just dreaming that we're still living in it. Right? It's like the movie is over, but you go home and you dream about it. Right? This movie is over. Right? And the one that you asked to come and help you, all right, that symbol of love that you invited in is with you. And that symbol has waited a long time to give you this, the memory of who you are. Right? Receive it now of him, for he would have you know him. And remember, only a little wall of dust stands between you and your brother. No matter what it looks like, no matter how deep the fear or the hatred, right? It can be knocked over with a feather, okay? If that's what we want, okay? Blow on it lightly and with happy laughter, and it will fall away. And when it falls away, we walk into a garden that love has prepared for both of you. All right? Just imagine yourself walking into the garden with the other person and with Jesus walking in with you. And you're just in awe of the beauty. Right? And you can find a little bench and sit down and enjoy. Okay. So that's the little garden. That's what your mind truly is. It's that garden of peace and tranquility. Not the scorched and unproductive desert. Okay? All we need is that little willingness to come to the holy instant and have our perceptions changed for us. Okay? Alrighty then. We will look forward to seeing you in the next session. Okay? That's about it. That's as simple as it gets. Okay, bye.